Hey guys, welcome to a very exciting game of the Grand Chess Tour. We are into the finals and 4 players are playing these finals, and the players are Magnus Carlsen, you have Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and you have Levon Aronian and Liren Ding. So pretty interesting games, and there are 3 formats and it's a little unusual format. First one is the first 2 days there will be 2 classical games that are being played under the time control of 130 minutes for the entire game, plus you have 30 seconds increment for every move. For the next 2 days you will have 2 rapid games, that is 25 minutes plus 10-second delay, and then it will be 4 blitz games, that is 5 minutes and a 3-second delay. The classical games were played yesterday and they will be played today as well. This game is played between Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Pretty interesting game, a lot of poison in the position, and I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. So let's get into it. Magnus Carlsen has the white pieces and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has the black pieces. Both are grandmasters. We have e4 as an opening, and Magnus usually goes for c4, and he likes to play English opening, but in classical games he has chosen e4 a lot of times. So we have c5 in response, and this is the Sicilian defense. You have knight to f3, d6, d4, and now c takes d4, immediately relieving the tension in the center. You have knight takes d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, and a6. A pretty interesting move, mainly stopping any of the knights from getting to the square, or even the bishop coming into this wonderful b5 square and immediately attacking the king. You have bishop to g5 and now e6. Pretty solid position. You have f3, and it is interesting this f3 has been played so early in the position, because now Magnus is basically telling him, I'm going to castle on the queen side and I'm going to have a nice attack on the king side, and this is pretty early into the game. Yes, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave also says that maybe I'm not castling on the queen side because my c pawn is already traded off. He's going to castle on the king side, so Magnus decides, sure, let's reveal my game and let's start attacking. And this is pretty weird, because grandmasters usually in classical format, they don't really try to go for such variations, but we all know Magnus Carlsen. He is an amazing player, so you cannot really know what he can do. And we have h6. By the way, what Magnus said afterwards in the interview was that he wanted to get Maxime out of his preparations, because usually f3 is not a standard move in this position. So we have h6, a pretty strong response by Maxime, who is also prepared for this game. And now we have bishop to e3, simply retreating with the bishop and not really taking your bishop to this h4 square, mainly because, see, once you put your bishop to h4, then black is going to play the bishop to e7, and it will be eyeing this bishop. So in the next move, whatever you do, black is going to play knight captures here on e4, and you develop and open an attack on this bishop, a wonderful bishop. So it's a pretty crazy position. It's a known line. I'm just going to show it to you. If you have bishop to h4, bishop to e7 will be played, and after queen to d2, you usually want to develop your queen. You have knight takes e4, and now your queen is attacked. And your bishop is attacked here. So you don't really want to do this. Of course, you will get bishop takes e7 here, and you will have knight takes d2, and both the queens will be traded off pretty quickly, because you have to take, and then you have to take here, and these pieces will be traded off. But this is an okay position for both sides. But grandmasters will not really go for this. So we have, after bishop to e3, we have b5, a pretty interesting move, because now Maxime is saying, I'm definitely not castling on the queen side, I will be castling on the king side, and I want to have some nice attacks going. You have a3, immediately stopping any more pawn pushing, and you have knight b to d7, developing the second knight. queen to d2, and now bishop to b7. Putting this bishop on the nice diagonal, even though there are 3 pawns that are blockading the way, but it's fine once all the pieces are developed, and once these pawns want to be pushed and they want to fight, there will be good control. It's good to have the bishop mainly control over these two squares, which is the d5 and the e4 square. So which is why Maxime put his bishop on this nice diagonal, mainly to control these. And now you have castles by Magnus Carlsen and h5, a pretty interesting move. You have king to b1, getting the king to safety, and now bishop to e7. You have queen to e1, getting the queen back and now trying to remaneuver it, and you have rook to c8. Again, a pretty interesting move, because now you're putting the rook on the semi-open file, eyeing this wonderful c2 pawn, and if white is not careful, and if he moves his knight, and then the queen is coming here, both the queen and the rook will attack this c2 pawn. You have to be careful with this. I myself have fallen prey for this, and it's not amusing to watch you fall apart. So be careful. You have a rook to g1, and it's a pretty interesting move in this position, because what is the idea behind getting the rook here? The idea is to put your rook on g2 and nicely defend this c2 pawn, and pretty amazing idea. That's why Magnus Carlsen is the #1 in the world. Because if I was in this position, I would probably develop my bishop, get it out and try to defend the c pawn this way. But Magnus has different plans for this bishop. So we have queen to c7 and now g3, and this is a pretty interesting position, because what will be played next is pretty important for black. So pause the video and try to find the correct combination, or at least a combination that you would feel comfortable playing as black. And the idea is to have d5. You are ready to open up the center, because your pieces are nicely defending the key central squares, and white doesn't really have much control over it, even though once the bishop moves, then you will have some control over this e-file. But till then, it's better for you to open up the lines, even though your king is in the center, because now you can get an advantage. After d5, you will get bishop to f4, getting the bishop out of the way and also attacking the queen. And now you can simply play e5. Pretty interesting move. You have e takes d5, and this is where it gets crazy. And now you can have e takes f4. You can even give up this bishop, mainly because your bishop, the black's bishop, the Dutch square bishop, is also under attack, and it cannot move. So in the next move, once you defend this square, you can definitely move this pawn forward, attack the queen and attack the bishop, and you can capture the bishop as well. So pretty interesting position. After this, you get knight to f5. Now you are nicely defending this d6 square, and black has to be really careful in this position. Queen to e5, proactively moving the queen. You have d6, and it's a pretty crazy position. So Maxime didn't really like it, neither did Magnus, because they spent a lot of time thinking about this position, and it wasn't pretty clear what's going to happen, especially after bishop to f8. Just going back to safety, you have queen takes e5, knight takes e5, and rook to e1. Looks like this the next move you're going to capture this knight, and white regains its pieces, but it's not clear how black is going to develop. It's not castled yet. This knight has a wonderful position. This rook is about to queen. This pawn is about to queen, and it's pretty crazy. Even though this bishop is eyeing this pawn, there is not really much happening here. This bishop can develop itself. These two rooks can come into the game and support this pawn. This knight can go here, so pretty amazing position. which is why in this move none of that was played and knight to e5 was played. You simply have rook to g2, and Magnus continues with his plan, supporting the c2 pawn. You have castles finally, now that there is not much of an attack going on the king side that Magnus is planning. You can nicely castle, so Maxime just castles. You have h3 and you have d5, and finally there is some action that is going to be happening in the center. You have f4, not really capturing but attacking this knight, and you have knight to c4, now attacking this bishop, e5, now attacking the knight, and you have knight takes e3. And here in this position, when asked about this position in the post-match interview, Maxime said that it was important for him to get this dark square bishop out of the way for a knight that wasn't really doing much. So you could even move this knight and get the knight into the game, but this bishop was pretty important. So he decides to get rid of it, and he does. You have queen takes e3, knight to e4, and knight takes e4, d takes e4. A wonderful pawn that cannot really be attacked unless you put your bishop here on g2 and then attack it, but the bishop is nicely guarding this diagonal, which was really important for Maxime to put this bishop on this diagonal. So rook to e2. It's a wonderful time for you guys to pause the video, as there is a wonderful combination that can give black a lot of advantage, and try to find it. For any of you who found it, you guys are pretty amazing. Congratulations, you play like a grandmaster. And the move to find was b4. It was a boom moment, because now it's pretty tough to find why this b4 move is so amazing, because even Magnus, when he was questioned in the post-match interview, he said, I don't really understand why this is winning. But when he realized what happens next, he's like, oh, you're right. So both the players missed this idea, but I'm going to show it to you. You have a takes b4. It's a no-brainer. You have bishop takes b4, a pretty interesting move, because now you bring your bishop into the attack. You have bishop to g2, rook f to d8. Now you have nice control over nice control over this knight, because the knight cannot move, as if you move the knight, your rook is under attack. So bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, queen takes e4, and now this was the move to find, bishop to b6. Boom! Because now what are you going to do about this this knight? Your knight is lost, mainly because rook to d3. You can try to defend it. You have rook to c4. Now you are attacking the knight 3 times. Not much you can do to defend it. You even have c3 trying to defend, but you simply get bishop takes c3. Again, you cannot really capture, because you will simply not be allowed to capture. Your king will be under attack, and you cannot really capture here, because again you will lose the rook. So a pretty crazy position. This b4 move was pretty amazing. So none of that was played. After rook to e2, this move was not played. Bishop to d5 was played, which is also considerably an alright move. It's not something that's bad or anything, because you get bishop to g2, and now you have queen to c4, trying to give a check, and you have knight to b3, simply blocking the check. Bishop to c5, attacking the queen, and knight takes c5, getting rid of the dark square bishop as well. You have queen to a2 with a check, not really immediately capturing, because you have a lot of time to capture. You have king to c1, and you have to be really careful, because rook f to d8 is next, and you don't really have to capture this, because there will be a checkmate threat in this position if white is not careful. And again, I'll give you a wonderful idea that was presented at the end of the match during an interview, which was bishop to c4. Again, you're attacking the rook, and you cannot really try to go defend the rook, mainly because if you try to defend the rook by saying, let's say you go to rook to f2, then you get rook takes c5. Now you have queen takes c5, and you will simply get queen to a1 with a check. You have to move your king. King goes to d2 and rook to d8 check. Boom! What are you going to do now? You have to move away with the king. King probably will go to e3, and then you can simply capture. It's all over for white. So you have to be really careful. And back in this position, actually I forgot to show you what happens after bishop to c4 is played. You cannot try to protect your rook. Now you get knight takes e4. The pawn is hanging, so why not capture it? And you simply have bishop takes e2, the rook is gone. Queen takes e2, now queen to a1 check. King to d2, queen takes b2, queen to d3. And now if you try to queen under a pin, you will simply have this knight that goes to d6, and then there is no point. You have rook to c4, and now queen to b3, and now you have to give up, or rather you have to exchange off these pieces, and white is completely better in this position. So bishop to c4 was not really played, and you have, after rook f to d8, you simply have c4, because after bishop b takes c4, you have rook e to d2, and you have queen to a1 with a check. You have to go up with the king. So now king goes to c2, and now queen to a2, simply repeating the moves. King to c1, queen to a1, king to c2, queen to a2, king to c1, and this is draw by threefold repetition. And if you ask why is this a draw, because this is pretty exciting position, why didn't either of the players go for a win? Mainly because black doesn't really have a clear win from here, and because the position is so complicated, there is so much to calculate. Both of them didn't really have enough time, and this was just move 32. They had lost all of their time, and there was nothing that they could do, so they just, both of them realized that let's just draw, and it's completely fine, because this was a pretty exhausting game. They had so much to calculate, and I hope you guys have also enjoyed it. It's a wonderful start to the finals. Maxime played a brilliant game, and Magnus, even though he had a slight idea of what was going on in the match, he held his nerves pretty fine, and he did amazing. That's it from this game. I would like to thank all my subscribers for subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate your support. Namaste. See you next time.